After my mother passed in 2009, Carol found a wooden chest in the back of her closet. My mother's sterling silver, 12 place settings, a serving spoon, a gravy ladle, a cake server. A wedding gift from my grandmother in 1951. Every piece was black, not slightly tarnished, black. I could barely see the tiny rose pattern engraved on the handles. A jeweler quoted me $400 to $600 for professional restoration, but I restored the entire set that afternoon for about 10 cents. The roses came back, the monogram came back, and not a single atom of silver was removed from any piece. In the next 30 minutes, I am going to show you 3 things. First, the exact chemistry of what tarnish actually is and why the method the jewelry industry sells you to remove it is slowly destroying your silver every time you use it. Second, the real history of how silversmiths restored tarnished pieces for centuries before the Polish industry replaced a free method with a paid one. And third, the step-by-step process to reverse tarnish on any silver piece in your house without removing a single atom of silver, including the 5 mistakes that will either damage the piece, leave the tarnish worse, or ruin sentimental details that cannot be replaced. I also want to tell you about a woman named Estelle who bought and sold antique silver for 35 years, and what she told me about what Polish actually does to heirloom pieces will make you throw away every tin of silver cream you own. I will get to Estelle after the steps. Here is what the silver care industry hopes you never think about, because once you understand this, their entire business model falls apart. You buy a tin or a tube of silver polish. Maybe you pay $8, maybe $15 for the premium brand. The label says it cleans and restores. You squeeze some onto a soft cloth. You rub it over the tarnished piece, and the black comes off. The silver shines. It looks beautiful. You feel satisfied. You put the piece back on the shelf. 6 months later, the tarnish is back. You get the polish out again. Rub, shine, back on the shelf. 6 months later, tarnish again. Polish again. This cycle repeats for as long as you own the piece. And here is what most people with inherited silver actually do instead. They do not polish. They put the silver in a box, push the box to the back of a closet, and leave it there for years because the polishing feels like too much work, and they do not want to pay a jeweler. The silver sits in the dark, turning blacker every year, wrapped in tissue paper that their mother or grandmother put there. And every time they open that closet and see the box, they feel a small pang of guilt because they know they are letting something valuable deteriorate. But the effort and cost of dealing with it keeps them from acting. How many people watching this right now have a box exactly like that somewhere in their house? A box of silver they inherited and never opened because the tarnish felt like a problem they could not solve without spending money they did not want to spend? The silver care industry counts on that guilt. They count on you feeling that the only options are expensive professional restoration or expensive product purchases. They never mention the third option because the third option is free. But have you ever looked at the cloth after you polish? It is black. The industry says that black on the cloth is the tarnish you removed. And it is. But it is not just tarnish. It is also silver. Because every commercial silver polish is an abrasive. It contains fine particles of calcium carbonate, aluminum oxide, or silica suspended in a chemical carrier. When you rub the polish on the silver, the abrasive particles grind away the surface. They remove the silver sulfide tarnish, which is the black compound, and they remove a thin layer of the silver underneath. Every polishing session makes the piece microscopically thinner. Every polishing session removes silver that cannot be put back. On a solid sterling piece, this thinning takes decades to become visible. But on silver-plated pieces, the damage happens much faster because the silver layer is only a few microns thick. Polish a silver-plated tray 20 or 30 times over 10 years, and you will start to see the copper or nickel-based metal showing through as dull patches where the silver has been completely rubbed away. Once the plating is gone, it is gone. No amount of polish will bring it back. And on finely engraved pieces, on pieces with detailed filigree or raised patterns, the abrasive polish wears down the high points faster than the low points, gradually blurring the detail that makes the piece valuable and beautiful. That monogram that your grandmother had engraved, those tiny roses on the handle, the delicate beading around the rim of a serving bowl, all of that erodes a little more with each polishing. Have you ever noticed that very old silver pieces in antique shops look softer and less detailed than newer ones? That is not just age, that is decades of abrasive polishing slowly grinding the definition out of the metalwork. Now here is the chemistry that makes all of that unnecessary. Silver does not rust the way iron does. Silver tarnishes. Tarnish is silver sulfide, a compound that forms when silver atoms on the surface react with hydrogen sulfide and other sulfur compounds in the air. The silver atoms bond with sulfur atoms and form a thin layer of silver sulfide on the surface. This layer starts as a pale yellow, progresses through brown, and eventually turns black as it thickens. The silver atoms are still there. They have not gone anywhere. They have just bonded with sulfur. They are still sitting on the surface of the piece, chemically combined with sulfur atoms, waiting to be separated. And separating them is simple electrochemistry. Aluminum has a much stronger affinity for sulfur than silver does. When you place a piece of tarnished silver in direct contact with aluminum foil in a hot solution of baking soda and water, the aluminum steals the sulfur atoms away from the silver. The aluminum gives up electrons to the silver sulfide, reducing the silver ions back to metallic silver and forming aluminum sulfide, which dissolves into the solution. The tarnish disappears because the silver sulfide is being converted back into pure silver, not removed, converted. The silver atoms that were bonded to sulfur are returned to their metallic state and remain on the surface of the piece exactly where they started. Zero loss of material, zero thinning, zero damage to engravings, plating, or surface detail. The baking soda serves as the electrolyte, creating an alkaline solution that allows the ions to flow between the aluminum and the silver. The hot water accelerates the reaction by increasing the kinetic energy of the molecules. In cold water, the process takes hours. In hot water, it takes minutes. This reaction was described in chemistry textbooks in the early 1800s and was standard practice among silversmiths, estate jewelers, and wealthy households throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries. A butler managing a formal silver collection in an English country house or a wealthy American estate did not polish the silver with abrasive paste. He used the electrochemical bath. It was faster, it preserved the pieces, and it cost nothing. The knowledge was passed down through the trade, from master silversmith to apprentice, from head butler to footman, for generations. Then the silver polish industry grew. Goddard Silver Polish was established in 1839 in Leicester, England. Wright's Silver Cream followed in the American market. Haggerty's became the premium brand for wealthy households. These companies sold convenience, a tube of paste that you could rub on and wipe off without setting up a basin. But the convenience came at a cost that was never printed on the label. Every use removed silver. And a product that slowly destroys what it claims to protect is a product that guarantees its own future sales, because the piece continues to tarnish and the owner continues to buy polish. By the mid-20th century, the shift was complete. Tiffany & Company began selling their own branded silver care products in 1947. Lending the authority of the most respected name in American silver to the abrasive polish model. If Tiffany sold polish, polish must be the right way to care for silver. That endorsement was worth more than any advertisement. It told millions of silver owners that abrasive polishing was not just acceptable, but necessary. The electrochemical method, which Tiffany's own silversmiths almost certainly knew about, was never mentioned in their consumer materials. Why would they tell you about a free method when they could sell you a $12 tin of cream with their name on it? By the mid-20th century, the electrochemical method had largely disappeared from public knowledge. It survived among antique dealers, museum conservators, and a handful of silversmiths who understood the chemistry. Everyone else was rubbing their heirlooms thinner with every polish. Here is how to do it. Follow these steps exactly. Step 1. Line a glass or ceramic baking dish with aluminum foil, shiny side up. Make sure the foil covers the entire bottom of the dish. Do not use a metal pan because it can interfere with the electrochemical reaction. Glass or ceramic only. Step 2. Place your tarnished silver pieces directly on the aluminum foil. The silver must be touching the foil. This physical contact is essential because the electrons need to flow directly between the two metals. If the piece is not touching the foil, the reaction does not occur. For flatware, lay the pieces flat. For larger items like bowls or trays, you may need to do sections by rotating the piece so different areas contact the foil. Step 3. Sprinkle 1 tablespoon of baking soda over the silver pieces. Then pour enough hot water, not boiling but hot from the tap, about 140 to 160 degrees, to fully submerge the pieces. You will see fizzing as the baking soda dissolves. Within seconds, you may notice a faint sulfur smell, like rotten eggs. That smell is the sulfur leaving the silver and transferring to the aluminum. It means the reaction is working. Now here is where Frank made a mistake that could have cost me an irreplaceable piece. The first time I tried this method, I was impatient. Instead of hot tap water, I poured boiling water directly from the kettle onto the silver in the dish. The thermal shock on one of the older forks, a piece from the 1890s that had been soldered at the neck, caused the old solder joint to weaken. The handle did not fall off, but I could feel it was slightly loose afterward. Old silver pieces often have soft solder joins that are sensitive to rapid temperature changes. Hot tap water is safe. Boiling water is a risk you do not need to take. The reaction works perfectly well at 140 degrees. You do not gain anything by going hotter except the possibility of damaging a joint that has held for 100 years. Step 4. Wait 5 to 10 minutes. For light tarnish, the silver will begin brightening within 1 to 2 minutes. For heavy tarnish, the black stuff that looks like it will never come off, give it the full 10 minutes. If the tarnish is extremely heavy, you may need to replace the foil and baking soda solution and do a second round because the aluminum foil becomes coated with aluminum sulfide and stops being as reactive. Step 5. Remove, rinse, and dry. Lift the pieces out of the bath with tongs or your hands, rinse them under warm running water, and dry them immediately with a soft cloth. Do not let them air dry because water spots can form. The silver should be bright and clean with the original surface detail fully intact. Run your finger over any engraved area. You will feel every line, every letter, every decorative detail exactly as it was when the piece was made. Nothing has been removed. Everything has been restored. Step 6. For ongoing prevention, store your silver with a piece of chalk or a strip of activated charcoal in the drawer or chest. Both chalk and charcoal absorb sulfur compounds from the air, dramatically slowing the rate of tarnish formation. A properly stored silver piece can go 2 to 3 years between treatments instead of 6 months between polishing sessions. That means the silver you restore today stays bright through next Christmas, through the anniversary dinner, through every occasion you want to set a table that means something. If you own silver that is sitting in a box somewhere because you thought it was too far gone to save, subscribe right now. I have a video coming next week that the cleaning industry has been hiding for decades, and you will want to be here for it. Now let me tell you about Estelle, because what she told me about silver polish and the antique market should frighten anyone who owns inherited silver. Estelle ran an antique silver business in Bucks County, Pennsylvania for 35 years. She bought estate silver at auctions and from families, restored it, and sold it to collectors. Over her career, she handled thousands of pieces, from colonial-era coin silver to Victorian sterling to mid-century modernist designs. I met Estelle at an estate sale about 7 years ago. She was examining a silver tea service, and I asked her how she could tell the quality. She spent the next 20 minutes educating me, and somewhere in that conversation, I mentioned the baking soda and foil method. She looked at me and said that is the only method I have ever used on any piece I have sold in 35 years. I have never allowed polish to touch a piece in my inventory. Not once. I asked her why. She said polish is the single greatest cause of value destruction in antique silver. She said she has seen Georgian tea sets worth $8,000 to $10,000 that were worth half that because generations of polishing had worn the hallmarks nearly flat, blurred the engraving, and thinned the walls of the teapot until you could feel them flex when you squeezed. She said the families who polished their silver religiously every month thinking they were caring for it were actually depreciating it with every rubbing. A museum conservator would be horrified by what consumer silver polish does to a collectible piece. Estelle told me that the electrochemical bath is standard practice at the Smithsonian, the Victoria and Albert Museum, and every serious silver conservation program in the world. No reputable museum conservator would ever use abrasive polish on a piece of historical silver. The method Frank uses in his kitchen with aluminum foil and baking soda is the same principle that trained conservators use on pieces worth tens of thousands of dollars. The only difference is the scale of the equipment. I asked Estelle the obvious question. If every museum and every serious dealer uses the electrochemical method, why does the consumer market only sell abrasive polish? She said because a consumer who knows the foil method never buys polish again. The method is free, it uses materials everyone already has, and it works better than any product on the shelf. The silver care industry cannot sell a method, it can only sell a product. So it sells the product and never mentions the method. Carol's niece Sarah got married last year, and Carol gave her a set of silver dessert forks that had been in Carol's family since the 1930s. The forks had been in a felt-lined box in the attic for at least 15 years, and they were completely black. Carol asked me to restore them before the wedding. I set up the basin in the kitchen, laid the forks on the foil, poured the baking soda and hot water, and waited 8 minutes. Sarah came into the kitchen while the forks were still in the bath and watched the tarnish disappear. She said it looked like the black was melting off. When I lifted the forks out and rinsed them, they were brilliant. Sarah held one up and I could see the engraving on the handle, a tiny script letter C for Carol's family name, as crisp and sharp as the day it was cut. She started crying. Not because of the forks, because she could read her family initial on a piece of silver that her great-grandmother had held. That connection mattered more than the metal. And I want to tell you what happened when I brought my mother's silver out of the bath that first time, because I cut the story short at the beginning and the full moment deserves to be told. When Carol saw the pieces laid out on the kitchen table, gleaming the way they must have looked when my grandmother bought them, she sat down and did not say anything for a long time. She just picked up one of the forks and turned it over and ran her thumb across the little roses on the handle. Then she looked at the back where my grandmother's initials were engraved, M.E.D., and she held it up to the light. The letters were crisp and sharp, not worn down, not blurred, not softened by decades of polishing. As clear as the day the engraver cut them. She said, "Frank, your mother would have loved seeing this." And she was right. My mother had stopped using that silver sometime in the 80s because the tarnishing bothered her and the polishing exhausted her. She put it in the closet and it stayed there for 20 years. If she had known that 10 minutes and a sheet of aluminum foil could have brought it back, she would have used it every Sunday. That is the part that makes me angry, not the cost of the polish, the lost years. Now I have to be honest about the limits. The electrochemical method works on sterling silver, silver plate, and silver-filled pieces. It does not work on stainless steel or nickel silver, which are not actually silver. It also does not work on deliberately oxidized or patinated silver, where the dark areas are part of the design. Some antique pieces have intentional dark accents in the recessed areas to create contrast and visual depth. The electrochemical bath will remove this intentional patina along with the tarnish. If your piece has dark accents that are part of the pattern, treat it carefully by limiting contact time or masking areas you want to preserve. The method also will not repair physical damage. Dents, scratches, broken solder joints, and worn plating are mechanical problems that require a silversmith. The bath restores the surface chemistry. It does not repair the structure. Here are 5 mistakes that will ruin the treatment. Mistake number 1. Using boiling water. I already told you what happened with my solder joint. Hot tap water, 140 to 160 degrees. That is the safe range. Mistake number 2. Using a metal pan instead of glass or ceramic. A metal pan creates competing electrochemical reactions that can deposit metallic compounds on your silver as dark spots or discoloration. Glass or ceramic only. Mistake number 3. Leaving pieces in the bath for more than 15 minutes. Extended exposure to the alkaline solution can etch the surface of silver, leaving it with a matte or frosted appearance instead of a bright shine. 5 to 10 minutes for most pieces. Remove, check, and do a second bath if needed rather than leaving it too long. Mistake number 4. Not ensuring direct contact between the silver and the aluminum foil. The electrons transfer through physical contact. If a piece is sitting on top of other pieces and not touching the foil, only the bottom piece gets treated. Lay each piece directly on the foil. For a full flatware set, work in batches of 6 to 8 pieces so everything has contact. Mistake number 5, and this is the reason the silver polish industry still exists. Believing that caring for silver requires effort, time, and expense. The industry built a narrative that silver maintenance is laborious, that it requires special products, special cloths, special storage. That narrative sells products. The truth is that reversing tarnish takes 10 minutes, costs 10 cents, and uses materials that are already in your kitchen. The reason you have a box of blackened silver in a closet somewhere is not that silver is hard to maintain. It is that you were told maintenance requires products you did not want to buy and effort you did not want to make. The foil method requires neither. And once you know it, that box in the closet stops being a burden and becomes what it always was. A connection to the people who held those pieces before you. Let me give you the numbers. A tube of premium silver polish costs $8 to $15 and lasts approximately 20 to 30 uses. If you polish a set of silver quarterly, that is about $30 to $50 per year in polish alone. Over 30 years, $900 to $1,500. Professional restoration runs $50 to $200 per piece, and a full set can cost $400 to $600 per session. The electrochemical method costs approximately 10 cents per treatment, which covers the baking soda. The aluminum foil and hot water are functionally free. Over 30 years, the total cost of maintaining a full silver set with the foil method is under $5. And the silver retains its full weight, its full detail, and its full value because no material has ever been removed. There is a number that matters even more than the cost, and it is the one that the Polish industry will never put on their label. Every polishing session removes approximately 1 to 2 microns of silver from the surface. That sounds microscopic, and it is. But over 30 years of quarterly polishing, that adds up to 120 to 240 microns of material loss. On a silver-plated piece with a plating thickness of 20 to 30 microns, that means the plating is completely gone within 5 to 8 years of regular polishing. On a solid sterling piece, the loss is less catastrophic structurally, but the engraving detail that makes the piece beautiful and valuable erodes with every session. A monogram that was crisp and deep in 1951 is shallow and soft by 2020 if it has been polished regularly. The electrochemical method produces 0 microns of loss. 0. The silver that was there when the piece was made is still there after 100 treatments. That is not a small difference. That is the difference between preserving an heirloom and slowly erasing it. That set of flatware from my mother's closet is still in our dining room hutch. We use it on holidays. Every piece has every rose, every letter, every line of engraving exactly as sharp as the day my grandmother bought it in 1951. 14 years since I restored it, 0 polishing, 2 electrochemical baths. Total cost of silver care in 14 years, about 20 cents. The silversmiths knew this. The museum conservators know this. Estelle knew this for 35 years. The only people paying $8 a tube to slowly grind away their family silver are the people the industry never told. If you want to see what the cleaning industry has been hiding for decades, that video is on your screen right now. Subscribe if you have not already. I will see you over there.